What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Look at this. 4 episodes in a row. Don't want to jinx myself. I don't really believe in jinxes, but anyway. Today we've got some malicious compliance again for you guys to finish off your work week. I hope you enjoy it, and let's get into it. Don't eat upstairs or downstairs. Someone said I should put this here, so in middle school, internal consistency among staff did not exist. The cafeteria people yelled at us to eat breakfast upstairs while the teachers hated that because of carpets or something. It was kind of silly hearing both sides yelling every day, so I jokingly proposed we set up a table halfway up the stairs on the landing. My friend ran with this idea, and a few days of planning and getting supplies, we set it up. It wasn't fancy, but we had some snacks for it and a sign that read, "Can't eat upstairs, can't eat downstairs, eat here." Some of the teachers thought it was funny, including the principal, and it stayed up for a few days. Pretty minor, but we thought it was pretty funny. This is the problem. Schools are becoming like big giant corporations. Actually, they may have surpassed big giant corporations when it comes to the right hand not knowing what the left hand's doing. There are rules in place, but they're kind of ambiguous or up to interpretation by whatever department handles certain things. And yeah, that sucks, especially for students who aren't even fully developed yet. And, you know, some of them have good reasoning, some of them don't. It's just a good way to start fights, really. Or totally clog up a fire escape stairwell with a table for snacks and food. Hopefully somebody got the point and changed the rules to be more specific. One place or the other or both. It really should be just that simple. Service industry compliance. Background. During an 8-hour shift at a BS temp job spent on my feet, I stopped moving for 2 minutes to take a breath and just enjoy standing still. I happened to yawn discreetly during minute 2. Shift started early morning. During my shift, I worked at least 3 times harder and better than the other employees who spent most of their time effing around on their phones, chatting, and vaping behind the shelves or under the counter. The events of this situation. Boss, who is never there, but when she is, takes the time to bitch out anyone she sees so she's managing her employees, walks by and says, "My name," in a shouty voice. "If you've got nothing to do, you need to be cleaning or restocking. Don't just stand there." Malicious compliance. Spent the rest of the shift detail cleaning, manually descaling, sterilizing, and polishing an espresso machine. For 3 hours. As slowly and thoroughly as possible. It was very relaxing. Then I peaced out. Screw you, manager. This is the sign of a very piss-poor manager. I haven't met a ton of good ones over the years, but, you know, there's decent managers, then there's very poor managers, and then there's very mediocre managers. Management itself in a lot of instances seems to be structured around mediocrity, but this one is very piss poor because she picked out the only guy who was working hard all day and stood still for just a couple minutes, supposedly, and got what she wanted. He was cleaning his little heart out on that espresso machine, and I'm sure it worked and functioned just like brand new when he was done, or she. Anyway, that just shows how much this manager really doesn't pay attention to the day-to-day goings-on around the place, so... yeah, or they got their pet favorites and yes people and things like that, so who knows? Maybe they're her pets, and you just didn't fit the mold. Don't mess with the nerd. For context, this happened in 2016. I, female, was 19 at the time and was a psychology student. I was relatively new in town and knew basically no one, and because I changed schools after my first year in college, my whole class was already familiar with each other and I was the new girl. I was quickly adopted by a group of students that became my college friends for the entire graduation. All but one. This one, let's call him Dave, 29, became my boyfriend after around 2 months of me entering the group. He was completely the opposite of me, and to this day I still don't know what got into me to date someone like him. He was a daddy's boy with an anarchist attitude. Long hair, always wore sandals, smoked cheap cigarettes, didn't work at all. Everything was paid by his dad, including his studies. Me, I was working part-time as a tutor while living with my mom and helping her on the side so she could get her high school diploma. My dad made her drop out before marriage and she never had the time to do so after divorce. Being the high achiever I am, I always delivered my papers on time, wrote them calmly throughout the available time, and overall never had myself having to do something last minute. He, as you can imagine, wasn't like that at all. I only found out after us and our group got together for 5 group projects. All very important for the final grading of the subjects, mind you. Before that, we only had individual projects, by the way. As per usual, the group decided to be divided into smaller ones so we could work on our sections, and I obviously decided to work with my boyfriend. But he never did anything, and I mean literally. We started fighting, arguing, and cussing at each other on a daily basis. The group also got tired of him, so I started planning my revenge. First, I talked to the group and explained the whole plan. They agreed to sit quietly while I mastered it. Second, I deeply apologized to poor Dave for making him so miserable and pretended to play cool while the projects were being done. He pretended to do his part while minimally helping to do stuff. Poor guy spent an entire 30 minutes organizing the project's Google Drive, then cut to the project's delivery date. They were all supposed to be presented in front of the class, plus the written papers. Me and the group got together to get everything straight, get prepared. Dave was even invited but never showed. He explained that he would read the files on the drive beforehand. On the day of the first project, I initiated my plan. I arrived earlier and went to the teacher's office. I explained what Dave had, or rather hadn't done all semester, and how he never even tried to participate. Then I showed print screens of our texts about the topic, to prove I was telling the truth, followed by the group chat I created to check if the gang would be in on the plan with me, confirming the rest of the group was okay with my decision. I told the first teacher, and every other project day I did the same with the others, that I want him kicked out of the project. He wouldn't get grades for our work. In class, when the group was called first day, we all stood up, including him, but the teacher stopped him before he could join us. Not you, mister, only the ones who actually did the job. He got pale while we started the presentation and left before we ended. The next day, same thing happened, and for the other 3, he didn't even show up. He only showed up for 2 of the finals, too. I ghosted him, ignoring calls and texts. And in school, he even tried to talk to me, but I walked the other way. Well, he was forced to drop college since he failed majority of his classes and his dad didn't want to continue paying for something he wasn't appreciating. Never heard of him since then. I started taking college classes later in life. Before that, I was a really crap student. All through upper grade school and high school for sure. I didn't even finish high school, let's be honest. But the 2 years that I went, I didn't do any work. But I wasn't required to do anything in a group setting either. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have left people hanging as a group, but as an individual, I really didn't care. I didn't care if my grades were bad or if the work got turned in, whatever. I was very bored in school. I don't know, ADHD, whatever. But when I started taking college classes as a young-ish adult, I always participated very well, did all my lessons. I didn't always work steadily through the semester. Sometimes I would, wait till the last minute. Hey, I'm a great procrastinator. Why waste a skill like that, right? So anyway, even if I waited till the last minute, I would put my all into it. I would really dig down deep, write a nice 10-page paper the night before it was due, walk away for 30 minutes, get something to eat, come back, do some editing, print, done. And used to piss my wife off because I would usually get A's on those papers. But anyway, never leave the group hanging, man. When you're supposed to be part of it, then you're supposed to be part of it. At least attempt to pull your weight. So, anarchist, while daddy's paying for all your stuff. Right. Oof. Yes, sir. When I was in the Army, I was drill sergeant and trained some new recruits. I was fair and not like one of those D-bags. I did everything I ordered them to do with them together to show them how to lead. I like it that way, and my squad also liked that I get dirty with them. So my standing in the company was quite good and I was appreciated. After a couple months, I had to switch companies, and a pretty young and fresh second lieutenant was my new leader. He was kind of the same age as me, but was full of discipline and wanted to spread his knowledge. What you need to know, we all salute each other, but the other formalities were just needed and required when there were some official things to do. But not for this guy. He ordered me to be like a real soldier and salute every time I enter the room where he is and speak with him, which is how it should be, and to be more respectful. Cue malicious compliance. Every effing time I entered the room where he was, I put on all the military manners I got, and I have a lot of them, saluted him, and spoke on highly official with him. Only short reports. Yes, sir. No, sir. As you wish, sir. And I continued this for days and even weeks. Every other officer looked at him like, dude, are you serious? That you want it like that? And he became more and more embarrassed. He even told me, please don't say yes, sir anymore, because we both know this means go F yourself. I just responded with, yes, sir. Anything else, sir? And we both knew that I would continue this behavior. At the end, when I left there, all but him thanked me for what I did, and we all had a big laugh about it. But I think he didn't appreciate his order, and will think twice in the future. For me, it was just him, and I like to show that I got respect and manners. It was a very funny time. In pretty much every branch of the service, whatever branch you're in, there is a certain amount of respect and, how should we say, procedural things that need to happen, whether it's a salute or a certain greeting or whatever. There's certain things you got to do to maintain order and, keep the ranks straight. This guy evidently took it to a whole new level. And from what I understand, I wasn't there, of course, but from what I understand, this is kind of where fragging started in the military, in the Army and Marines, I guess. I'm assuming. You can fill me in if I'm wrong. But I'm pretty sure, these second lieutenants and things are got their ass all up on their shoulders are part of the reason that fragging exists today because, nobody wants to work under a D-bag, whether you're a higher rank or not. Permanent structure? Okay. I grew up in an okay town that has since become a bit snobbier. I was driving down my old street last year and I saw my old neighbor, Andrea, sitting on her front porch, so I stopped in to say hi. Turning into the driveway, I noticed a regulation-sized soccer goal in her next-door neighbor's small front yard, which is very out of sync with the rest of the neighborhood. It made me laugh a little. After a quick catch-up, I learned a couple things. She's the last of my old neighbors who still lives on the street, and the neighborhood has become very keeping up with the Joneses, with the exception of her next-door neighbor. I asked about the soccer goal, and here's the story. The neighbor has a young daughter who loves soccer. She would spend hours in the front yard kicking goals into a small goal anchored in the front yard with tent spikes. Apparently another neighbor, they don't know who, but they suspect the people directly across the street, complained to the township because of the semi-permanent structure in the front yard. The neighbor got upset, obviously. It was basically a toy in the front yard. Cops came to their house, they got a warning. Then they thought it would be okay as long as they took it down when they weren't home, but nope. Cops were called again and they were fined while the daughter was using it. The fine said something about having a semi-permanent because of the tent stakes structure. Cue malicious compliance. They weren't allowed to have a semi-permanent structure, but they could have a permanent structure. So they went and got a permit from the township, dug the holes, filled it with concrete, and built a regulation-sized goal and hung the permit on one of the poles. Now the mystery neighbor has to look at that goal every day. I could not stand to live in a neighborhood like that. That's one of the reasons I won't live in an HOA neighborhood, because most of the time people that run HOAs are little totalitarian D-bags, and they make up whatever rules suit them just to make a few bucks on the side, I'm pretty sure, because most of the time dues and fees and fines don't seem to go towards the things that they're supposed to, like upkeeping the sign and the lighting out front or whatever, and playgrounds, common areas. It just never seems to work out that way. Funny that. But yeah, the bottom line here is, unless your neighbor's running a complete junkyard or trap house, leave them alone. Don't screw with them. That's like one of the worst ways to get what you want, seriously. Back when I scheduled a machine shop. I was swing expediter / scheduler / shop assistant. I didn't run the machines, I just helped get done what needed to be done on our shift. Had an old school machinist come in at the start of shift and explain the blueprint was wrong, and if he followed the attached manufacturing procedure, it was going to result in a bad part. He showed me the issue and I agreed right away. Said I'd catch the engineer before shift the next day. I called the engineer and he says, "It's right, just do it." Call him again the next day, same result. Move it up a level and he storms into our office, pissed off on the third day. I try and show him the drawing and procedure, but he insists it's correct. He tells me I have no idea what we're doing in our shop. Just follow the procedure as it's written. I had logged all the calls, etc., and asked if we could put that in writing, and he does. Cue malicious compliance. I go to the same machinist. Tell him the issue. It's a 16-hour job. He sits and reads for 2 days and then hands paperwork, no part, into quality control. They check measurements and confirm it was manufactured correctly. They ask what's going on, where's the part? I come by and explain that according to both the drawing and procedure, the machinist was to machine a 12-inch part down to just over 13 inches shorter than it started at. Thus the produced product. Nothing. As usual, they ask about why we did this. I showed them the records I had. So they wrote it up as a procedural issue. 2 days later, the same engineer storms in, but brought his boss, the one I initially went to when I got no response, and starts accusing me of sabotaging his part. I calmly show both of them everything, explain that we knew it was an issue and tried to fix it, but we were overridden. Boss looks at the engineer and says, "Why aren't you listening to people that are trying to help?" And the engineer replies, "They didn't go to college to become an engineer. They don't know what they're talking about." And he walks out. I look at boss and he says, "We'll get you a revised procedure and drawing." I assume you still actually have the original stock to make it from? I laughed and told him I wasn't stupid. Of course I do. Engineer was no longer with the firm a couple weeks later. I don't think I've ever run into problems with engineers on construction sites when we were building homes or office buildings and things like that, but I did run into issues with architects. Oh, where do I start? I love most architects and engineers, but let's put it this way. When you were like me in the field, actually putting your hands on products, assembling, making parts from scratch, or just assembling parts that were ordered, farmed out and brought in on site on a truck, you got to the point where you were experienced enough to know when something didn't look right on the plans. And as soon as the parts were dropped off, you didn't even have to unstrap them or take them off the truck to know that something was seriously wrong. Whether it was roof trusses or, structural steel, there was always a glitch somewhere. And usually you could solve it with just one quick call to the architect who would touch base with the engineer. They would sort it out between them and then get us a revision or new parts or whatever. And, but every once in a while you run into one or the other who would say, oh, you're just stupid. You're just a dumb, nail banger or carpenter or laborer or whatever you are. Like, okay. They even told me that when I was the one running the jobs. Yeah, I'm just a dumb hick. Okay. You got it. You want that up there? We're going to put it up there, but I'm not letting anybody stand under it when it's done. And I will, cordon it off and put signs up and everything else. And then we're going to publicize just who made that decision. So careful what you wish for. Just because I didn't go to college doesn't mean I'm stupid. Boss says, I don't need your input. Just do what I say. So my wife is having some issues at her work with multiple people of different levels of management telling her different things to do depending on who's the manager on duty at the moment. I said she should do what the acting manager told her to do, and when another manager comes on duty complaining about what she was doing, to relay what the previous manager had told her and to let them work it out. I also said that she should document everything so she could relay it to HR if it became necessary to do so. I then explained to her about malicious compliance and what it meant. This started me thinking about an incident at my old job at a manufacturing plant about 12 years ago. The building had two areas, a production/packaging area and an attached shipping and receiving warehouse. The production area was air-conditioned and heated. The warehouse was heated but only had roof exhaust fans and no AC, so it got pretty hot in the summer, but was bearable. We just moved a bit slower. At the end of Friday, we closed all the dock doors and shut off the exhaust fans and closed the overhead door that separated the warehouse from the production areas. During the week, the overhead was open but had those plastic flap strips you could drive a forklift through to keep the cool air in production. One Friday, the newish manager, who spent little actual time in that building, told us that we should keep the fans on and the separation overhead door open during the weekend to keep the temperature cooler in the warehouse. Why he cared, I really can't fathom. We tried to explain to him that with the dock doors closed, the roof fans would simply suck all the cold air out of the production area. But he blew us off with the standard, "You'll do as I instruct you to do." So, cue malicious compliance. Monday comes, that morning in July, and it was hot as hell in the production area. The warehouse was the same temperature as always, and the coils on the production AC units had frozen, and we had to have people come out and service them. All the manager had to say was, keep that separation overhead door closed at all times. Yeah, another manager who's hardly ever in that space, doesn't pay any attention to what actually goes on, and won't listen to people who are there every day and know how things work. Just moronic. Exposing the drunk. A man was hired as my assistant at a tech-oriented business. He spent his breaks and his lunches getting drunk. I overlooked his behavior and covered for him because he was going through a contentious divorce. Surprisingly, he eventually accused me of treating him like crap. Then he engaged in a profanity-laden rant where he accused me of a lot of illegal, immoral, and unethical activities before telling me to leave him the hell alone. Yes, I know that I was enabling his behavior, but I had once gone through a messy divorce of my own and was feeling sorry for him. Well, cue the malicious compliance. I stopped covering for him. Cold turkey. It was bad enough when no one could find him because he was passed out in his car, but being passed out at the floor of the men's room with his trousers around his ankles on Customer Appreciation Day earned him a dismissal. Of course, he said it was all my fault. It was not. The fallout. Because it was discovered that I was capable of doing both my work and the work of my erstwhile assistant, I was allowed to work on my own after that, and without any adult supervision of my own. While I do feel sorry for certain alcoholics, there's a certain personality trait that I've noticed with a lot of them. There's a self-centeredness about them and a propensity for blaming other people for everything that goes wrong in their life. And that's just not the way the real world works. Everybody else is horrible. It's everybody else's problem. It's everybody else's fault. And their view of everything in the world is just totally skewed. And I think it was before they started drinking, but the alcohol definitely doesn't help. Oh, well. Okay, guys, hope you enjoyed today's stories. Do me a favor while we're getting everything kicked off and getting some momentum going here again. Click all the little things down below, the likeys, the subscribeys, and the whatever, and share the video if you feel like it. And until the next one, we'll see you.